The role of families in preventing and countering violent extremism, strategic recommendations, and programming options offers 10 recommendations related to the prevention phase of the life cycle of radicalization to violence. Family members are usually the first and best equipped to recognize signs of potential radicalization to violence. The recommendations contained in this document, with their focus on the CVE roles of the family, can help broaden, complement, and support the leading counterterrorism role of national governments. These recommendations range from promoting interaction between families and security forces to supporting and empowering women as prevention protagonists. Also in the document are programming options regarding the role of families in CVE. These programming options cover building parental capacity, community support for families, school-based approaches, CVE communications, and rehabilitation and reintegration. The recommendations and programming options in this document are designed to inspire policymakers when designing the most effective counterterrorism strategies for their region. Remember, your voice is critical to the success of our initiative. I encourage you to submit your experiences and provide feedback related to this good practice. Good Practices on Women and Countering Violent Extremism addresses the often overlooked role of women in CVE, with 22 good practices covering the broad range of the life cycle of radicalization to violence as it relates to women. Women and girls are present on both sides of violent extremism and terrorism, both as participants and as an important element of prevention. Therefore, it is crucial to consider initiatives that are tailored to women and their unique role in CVE. Good practices in this document cover general practices on women and gender in the CVE context, countering women and girls' involvement in violent extremism and terrorism, advancing women and girls' roles in CVE, and women and girls as victims of violent extremism and terrorism. For instance, it is recommended that CVE efforts such as alternative narratives do not focus solely on male experiences in violent extremism and terrorism. Initiatives that are aimed at women and girls should involve female teachers, community leaders, and former violent extremists in order to better address the needs of at-risk young women and girls. This document complements the Ankara Memorandum on Good Practices for a Multi-Sectoral Approach to CVE and Good Practices on Community Engagement and Community-Oriented Policing, and aims to aid policymakers and implementers as they develop diverse and tailored approaches to CVE. Remember, your voice is critical to the success of our initiative. I encourage you to submit your experiences and provide feedback related to this good practice. The Abu Dhabi Memorandum on Good Practices for Education and Countering Violent Extremism offers 24 non-binding good practices on ways in which education can be used as a resource by teachers, families, organizations, and policymakers to prevent and counter violent extremism. Educational environments that are protected as an intellectual safe space can serve as an effective setting for CVE interventions that address local push and pull factors. While quality education alone is not sufficient for CVE, it can facilitate CVE efforts in the educational sector. Good practices in this memorandum cover general practice for CVE in education, educational approaches, institutional approaches in government, the private sector, and media and technology, family-based and community approaches, and sports, arts, and cultural approaches. As an example, an emphasis on critical thinking and problem-solving skills can promote looking at issues that are often seen through a black and white lens, through a gray lens. Learning to approach an issue in multiple ways, other than using violence, can be extremely valuable to countering radicalization to violence, especially at an early age. Educators, parents, non-governmental organizations, and policymakers can use these good practices to inform their own implementations of education as a tool to counter violent extremism. Remember, your voice is critical to the success of our initiative. I encourage you to submit your experiences and provide feedback related to this good practice. The Ankara Memorandum for Good Practices for a Multi-Sectoral Approach to Countering Violent Extremism addresses the role of government institutions, agencies, and civil society in countering violent extremism. Comprehending the complexity of violent extremism and the factors that drive it requires a joint effort at the local, national, regional, and international levels. Experiences reveal that a cooperative and constructive dialogue between society and government agencies, including at the municipal level, is a prerequisite to success in CVE. This document provides 19 good practices based on those experiences that cover identifying the problem, multi-agency approaches within the state, public-private partnerships, socio-economic approaches, and the role of law enforcement agencies. As an example, state-led counter-messaging campaigns can often have trouble reaching the communities that need them the most. It is recommended that states work with civil society and community leaders in order to develop narratives against violence and effectively deliver those messages to the heart of the community. This document is complementary to the good practices on community engagement and community-oriented policing as tools to counter violent extremism, as well as the Rome Memorandum on Good Practices for Rehabilitation and Reintegration of Violent Extremist Offenders. The implementation of these practices should be consistent with applicable international human rights law and take into account the varied histories, cultures, and legal systems among states. Remember, your voice is critical to the success of our initiative. I encourage you to submit your experiences and provide feedback related to this good practice. Good practices on community engagement and community-oriented policing as tools to counter violent extremism provides 12 good practices related to the prevention phase of the life cycle of radicalization to violence. Despite the growing importance of the Internet, radicalization to violence continues to take place primarily at the local level. This local issue can best be addressed by building trust with local communities and engaging with them as partners to develop information-driven, community-based solutions. For example, community-oriented policing and community engagement trainings should be tailored to address the specific issues and dynamics of the local community. Other good practices on community engagement and community-oriented policing cover establishing goals and objectives, engaging in a local context, amplifying the message through engagement, providing training to practitioners, and evaluating effectiveness. Developing a strong partnership between governments and communities is crucial to CVE efforts. This document is designed to help facilitate those partnerships and aid in making them as effective as possible. Remember, your voice is critical to the success of our initiative. I encourage you to submit your experiences and provide feedback related to this good practice.